Hello, my name is Armin Alsahu. I'm the Director of Product Marketing for Routine Maintenance, Calibration, Networks, and Process Instruments here at Fluke. And I'm here with Jeff Gust.
I'm the Chief Corporate Metrologist for the company.
And we're here to talk about World Metrology Day. This year is the 150th anniversary of the invention of the meter. And Jeff, I'm glad you can to join with us here to talk about metrology and just like what exactly is World Metrology Day?
Okay, so World Metrology Day, it's not really about the invention of the meter necessarily, because the invention of the meter goes back even a lot farther than that.
Oh,
but
okay.
on this date in 1875, though, is when we adopted globally the metric system as our single system of measurement. I mean, at that time, there were lots and lots of different measurement systems being employed around the world, but we decided to harmonize globally on that one single system. So on May 20th of 1875, the Treaty of the Meter was signed. The United States actually is one of the first signatories, the initial signatories to that treaty as well. And so we recognize the world of measurement on this day, every day on the anniversary of that.
And that's May 20th, right?
Yes, on May 20th.
Gotcha. And thinking about that, you mentioned that we used to measure things in different ways. Like, how did that affect things now that we've actually standardized on one type of measurement?
Oh, that's a really cool question. There were so many different types of length measurements. They were based on measurements of length of a seed. They were based on the length of the thumb. All of them in one form or another were based on artifacts, enshrined artifacts, the length of a king's foot, something like that. And at least the metric system all set us to the same definition, so that we knew that a meter was the length of the piece of metal, platinum iridium, that was located at the International Bureau of Weights and Measures in Paris, France. And initially we started, back in 1875, we started with artifact standards. They were based, the weight of a kilogram was called La Grande K, the master kilogram, that was maintained at the International Bureau of Weights and Measures. So everybody in the world had a single reference for the first time to be able to come back to, rather than my country or my county or my province had this standard and none of them were interrelated to each other.
So during that conference, was it just the meter that was decided there, or were there other types of measurement?
Well, it's the metric system in general, so it was primarily based on the meter, the kilogram, and the second, but then there were other derived units from that as well.
Oh, wow, okay. So how would you say the field of metrology then has evolved over these last 150 years or so?
So a lot of evolution in the last 150 years as science has moved forward. So we went from those enshrined artifacts like we talked about to today, all of our measurements are based on constants of nature. So rather than using the kilogram, we base the kilogram now on Planck's constant, which is something that's used in quantum mechanics, but it is a constant that exists everywhere in the universe, so that you don't have to go back to Paris to that reference to realize the kilogram. And the second used to be based on the rotation of the Earth, and today it's based on the resonant frequency of the cesium atom. And so once you have that and you can realize it experimentally, you have the second. And then the meter is now based on the speed of light in vacuum and the second that we just talked about. So now we have the meter kilogram second completely defined by constants, and it's no longer dependent on those artifacts, because as you know, an artifact can get damaged, it could drift, it could change its values over time. They're just not constants. So now the constants of nature are something that will be fixed for all time.
So I'm assuming back 150 years ago, they didn't even have any of these calculations, right?
No.
They evolved this over time, and they would have to come back to this conference and then agree that this is what we want to standardize on?
Absolutely. Every year things got a little bit better. As technology drove the needs to have better measurements, we had to go back and make a better measurement system for them as well. I mean, a good example of back when the metric system was the Metre Convention was first adopted, one of the biggest challenges in society was the measurement of pressure, because pressure was associated with the steam engine. there were so many times that a boiler would explode and kill people. So the safety of people was at risk because of that. So they developed better ways to measure pressure and then made it a safer society.
Okay. So, what are some of the other more significant advancements such as this that you can think of when it comes to recent years, I guess?
Oh gosh, I mean, there are just so many to count, too many to count. But one of the things that we measure really, really well is frequency, time, because time is really important to people. Human beings just we're in love with or a slave to time, and we can measure time. So a lot of times when we talk about measurements of electricity, electrical quantities, we think about a part per million or a part in 10 to the 6th of that. When we measure time, we could take that part per million and divide it 1 million more times and be able to measure it 1 million times better than that. So,
wow.
And that's necessary for things like communication, for the internet. When we were exploring the universe and we're trying to communicate with satellites that are out past, out past Pluto, the farthest planets in the galaxy, all of those communications depend on frequency measurements that we're able to realize today.
So that really highlights like the role of metrology in technology today. How has Fluke played a role in that evolution in the 76 years that we've been around?
Absolutely. So Fluke, I mean, we make great products that work every day, that everybody can depend on and count on for all of their measurements. But we also make some of the world's most accurate products that are used at the National Metrology Institutes around the world. So most of the top level measurement capability is based on Fluke products, and probably one of the most coolest products, or one of the most interesting things that we've done, is we developed a pressure standard and it's the commercial version of it is called the PG 9607. But where that came about was our temperature system used to be based on the fundamental constant of the triple point of water, and that's great, and it's a constant of nature, but it's really a tough one to deal with. And some of the scientists proposed that we can use another natural constant called Boltzmann's constant as a better constant for the temperature scale, because it's used in the macro world that we see every day, like in the ideal gas law. Boltzmann's constant pops up, but it also pops up in the quantum world as well. So we thought this would be a great thing. But in order to set a new definition like that, you need to have several independent experiments to come up with that value before they agree to set it to a fixed point for all time. So the Americans had a really accurate measurement of Boltzmann's constant, and they wanted another good experiment. So the Germans at PTB were trying to do that, and they wanted to measure the dielectric constant of helium at 7 megapascal. But the problem they had is their measurements of pressure would directly affect the accuracy of their experiments. So they came to us and said, hey, we would like a pressure standard that it's accurate to 1 part per million. And our metrologists and engineers said, well, that's great, but the world's best measurement is about 5 parts per million. And they said, yeah, we know, we're going to pay you for it. We want this accuracy. And our engineers and our metrologists went to work on that, and we built that standard, and they were able to utilize that standard, and they had a successful experiment for the Boltzmann determination, and that value was part of what became the adopted value for the definition of the temperature scale today. So a lot of that couldn't have been done without Fluke products, and it's really exciting. And as a little follow-up to that, that was around 2012. So a couple of years ago, I went to a conference, a pressure conference, and they recalibrated that pressure standard 10 years later.
Wow.
Because it's quite an involved experiment to be able to do that. And they still agreed that it agrees to within 1 part per million of its original value 10 years ago. So 10 years later, that standard's still perfect. And that is what really makes us proud as well.
That's amazing. Just walk me through that process a little bit. Like, obviously you've been approached as Fluke to do this.
Yes.
like how many like hours does that take, or how many years does it take to develop this, and what does that look like in terms of presenting things like papers or
Yes.
evidence, and then
Yes.
how does that then go to the metrology conference to say that, hey, this is going to be the new standard for everybody?
No, absolutely great question, because you're right. Science doesn't progress forward without a lot of oversight.
Right.
Out of that, a lot of people are double or triple checking our process, and that particular pressure standard, the development of that was a really cool collaboration of not only what Fluke delivered, but what the rest of the world helped to validate as well. So yes, we did. That took years. That particular project took several years of our best people to be able to develop that product. And we had our own measurements, but they were all independently verified. So they would have one national laboratory look at the roundness of that piston gauge. One would look at things like its cylindricity and coaxiality, how it behaves in the different things. Another would look at the hardness of the materials and how much it would deform under different pressures. So and all of these people all did their research papers, and they present them at conferences over a several year time period. The biggest one is this particular pressure conference that happened in Germany in around 2012, where they were really finally pulling all of that together to say, I've looked at this aspect, it's good. I've looked at this aspect, it's good. And all of those collectively are what allowed us to be able to say, yes, we believe that the value of that piston is what we say it is.
I think that's a testament to the scientific method and just how much it really means for our company to be able to contribute to that
Absolutely.
sort of thing.
To that point, and where you say where we get involved with a lot of conference papers, well, I will say first, on the other side of that, a lot of people around the world actually study Fluke products as they're trying to develop new technologies, and they use our product as the reference, and I'll share some of what those look like. But so I go to those conferences to see what they're saying about our products and how they perform. But for example, when Sandia National Laboratories was trying to develop a new quantum standard for AC voltage measurement, and they did their whole big paper on how they developed this new standard, the reference that they were referencing against was a Fluke 792A, one of our Fluke products. We're always the goal that they're trying to achieve when they're developing new technology. And I'll say that 30 years later, they haven't been able to beat that technology yet. So that's awesome. That's really cool. But when we build a new product, so say like the 5790B AC reference standard, we can't, if we say we build the world's best product, we can't send an engineer to a conference to say, well, we designed it with this and we designed it in a particular way, because then we'd be giving away our intellectual property.
Sure.
But what they expect metrology to do is tell us, well, how did you measure this device? How did you test it? And you could treat it like a black box, like we don't know anything inside of it, but that doesn't affect how we actually measure it, our measurement methods. And those measurement methods are subject to peer evaluation.
Right.
And so if we're doing something wrong, as you said, science will tell us if we're doing something incorrect. If we made a mistake, they will help to judge that for us. But the acceptance of it also helps to accept that the product actually does what it says it does.
And that kind of also just brings up what, obviously having the scrutiny from the scientific community is a challenge. What other type of challenges do we have in the world of metrology today?
Oh, that's great. So there's two really big challenges. And the first one is that we're trying to convert to a digital world. That the traditional process for calibration, when we provide a calibration report on a product, is that we print out a certificate and say, here you go. And if somebody else has to take and look at that and probably retype it into a system again.
Right.
We're developing, there's a global initiative right now for developing what we call the digital SI, a completely digital process where a computer can pass measurement information to another computer, and that other computer can interpret it and understand it without the need of human intervention. So a good example, if I was passing something through that said 20 degrees, Well, is it 20 degrees Celsius? Is it 20 degrees Fahrenheit? Is it a phase angle of 20 degrees between different measurements?
Right.
Computers are not so smart. They need to be given the context to be able to understand that. And Fluke is actually one of the global leaders in the development of this international system of digital exchange of information. We have people that sit on national and international committees. We participate in international conferences, and we collaborate with the top research scientists in the world on that particular subject.
That's awesome. But, it also brings up, there's things like AI are a big thing these days when it comes to just any type of technology.
Yes.
What are you seeing in the future of metrology with some of the new technologies that are coming up, or some of the other new challenges, as you mentioned?
So I got another one of the future states for metrology before, and then I'll pop back to the AI part as well. So as we said, we measure frequency better than anything in the world. But we're already starting to push up against the limits of that, where our requirements for the world are becoming as good as our world's best standards. So there is talk now about a redefinition of the second.
Oh, wow.
It's based on the constancy of the cesium atom, but what they find is that the temperature of it starts affecting the definition of it. Any stray radiation affects that as well. So they are they're talking about different reference standards to redefine the second that are going to be impervious to some of those other types of definition, a little bit constant under better conditions, and can get us another echelon or two of accuracy, so maybe 10 or 100 times better than what we're measuring now. So, but we're measuring in about, some of the best measurements are about in parts in 10 to the 18th. So back to if we say, a part per million is 6, and you divide that by a million, and you get to that 12. And that's, by the way, that's equal to losing about 1 second in every 31,000 years.
Wow.
Now we're talking about parts in 10 to the 18, which is greater than the age of our universe, of our known universe, or estimates of our universe, to that level of accuracy. Wow. To be able to push technology. So that's one of the areas we're doing it. A couple of years we started working with AI as well. That's so great about Fluke. Fluke is really enabling all of our products. We have so many different products, whether it's infrared devices that are looking at the dryness of drywalls being manufactured, to be able to make a better product for industry using AI technology. We're using some AI technology, and that we'll be releasing this summer in a product to make the process of calibration a little bit easier by being able to interpret and look at digital and analog readouts as well. But that's a start for the calibration. Now I want to take that back to normal measurements where people do their work, because my vision for that is I want to use this AI technology to do what we call condition monitoring. There are so many different measuring instruments out there that are not automated. Right. They require a person to go and take a measurement on them. But what if that environment where that person is at is dangerous for the person? Right. Maybe it's in a nuclear plant. Maybe it's down in underground where there's methane concerns. Maybe it's out on an oil rig in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Can we apply a cheap and easy to use technology using AI to measure, to read these gauges, read what they are, so that we can interpret that data and know that oil rig or that particular condition is safe all the time for the people that are just trying to work every single day and do what they do.
And I think that plays into just kind of the key tenets of what Fluke is about, is making sure you come home safe every night.
Absolutely. Right. Fluke products, we're all about safety, reliability, and accuracy. Those, from our simplest products to our most sophisticated products, you can always count on Fluke to be safe and rugged and reliable as well. We've got some incredibly reliable equipment, as you well know, where people throw it out of cars and throw it off of down canyons, and it still works just fine. So it shows that people can depend on it on day to day. But also people depend on us to be accurate. They know that if it's a Fluke product and it's reading a particular measurement, they can count on it to be accurate above anything else that they would use.
As far as impacts go on the industry, how has metrology really affected various industries such as manufacturing and healthcare and environmental monitoring? I mean, you mentioned the monitoring portion of things, but what are other things that metrology really affects?
Yeah. So I'll share a story that that one of our other engineers shared with me first that I really like, and that was about the importance of gas flow measurements. So there are lots of different applications for gas flow, and we make some really accurate gas flow products. But let's take that back to our gas flow products are used to test and calibrate instruments that they're in fact used to test neonatal incubators for babies, okay? Because we want to know how much oxygen flow is flowing inside of that incubator.
That makes sense.
If you have too little oxygen flow in there, you could have cerebral palsy, occur in the child. If you have too much oxygen flow, it can cause blindness. We want gas flow measurements there to protect that baby, to make sure that it's safe, that it's free from harm as it's being allowed to grow and develop. And so that's an example where everyday measurements. A couple of years ago when the pandemic came out, and it was when we had vaccines and we wanted to ensure that the vaccines remained safe and effective, they needed to be stored at about minus 80, minus 90 degrees Celsius in order for them to stay effective. Our temperature probes were part of the process used to ensure that those were maintained at the right temperature. And even more important from that, we built calibration instruments that provide a temperature source at minus 90 degrees Celsius to test the temperature probes to make sure that the vaccine is safe all the time as well. So that's where good metrology could impact everybody's life on a day-to-day basis. But even going on, I mean, we could talk all day about that because the airplanes that we fly on, almost every single measurement on that airplane that we fly on, from the altimeter to the airspeed gauge to all the electronics and all the fiber optics, are typically traceable back to Fluke products. They are utilized for that. When we build automobiles, our Fluke products are used throughout that industry to depend and make dependable measurements there. The defense industry around the world depends on Fluke for their highest technology products as well.
And it makes sense because what good is a gauge if the gauge isn't accurate or isn't?
Absolutely.
We're giving you the right readings.
Yep.
Right?
It's all about measurement quality and being able to trust that measurement, because the process of measuring just gives us knowledge so that we can go make good decisions. But if you don't have adequate knowledge from a good measurement, you can't wind up making a good decision from it.
And I think a lot of the world just takes measurements for granted because it's so just ubiquitous in our everyday lives.
Yes, you're 100% right. We probably have dozens of measurements every day just on our way to work. There are measurements occurring in our car, and even ourselves. We're looking at our watch to see, am I going to be late to work? We look at our speedometer to see, am I driving too fast? Am I risking getting a ticket for that? We look at the temperature on our stoves to say, is the surface of that stove hot? Is it going to hurt me if I touch it? So there are so many measurements we make every single day, it almost becomes unconscious to us. And that's why World Metrology Day is a great way to kind of bring that back. It gives us that opportunity to really think about metrology and put it back in the forefront of the process of measurement and the importance of measurement in our daily lives and in industry, so that we can kind of celebrate that a little bit, because we have come so far as a species to be able to advance our science based on these good measurements and the knowledge that we're obtaining from them.
That's great. I mean, educating people on the importance of these measurements is very important. So what kind of efforts have we been making to kind of educate and inspire the next generation of metrologists. And we know that, the world is changing. So we definitely want to make sure that we still have metrologists coming in and learning the craft and making sure that everything is working correctly.
Yes. We want to make sure that we educate the community and the world and do outreach so that people understand what measurement's all about. And sometimes we'll go out and talk to kids at schools at different levels of schools. I participated in junior high and high school activities so that they understand the fundamentals of measurements, and a lot of people do that. Fluke produces a lot of really nice videos, or some really great content, and our goal is not to tell you about our products. We're here just to talk about measurement. We just want to share our knowledge so that people could understand that. I write my weekly blog in LinkedIn called Metrology Monday, but there's, we spend a lot of time giving to the world. We volunteer, one of our biggest volunteer professional organizations called NCSL International. I'm currently the president of that organization, and our mission is to share our knowledge about the world of measurement to everybody, and to be able to be a place where experts can come together and talk and make improvements to that world as well.
Right. Well, speaking of that world, just to wrap things up, could you tell us just a little bit about your own personal journey in metrology and what got you interested in this, and how to get you to where you are here today, sitting in front of me?
So I wish that children could be in elementary school saying, one day I'm going to grow up to be a metrologist, but that's not going to happen. They want to be rock stars or football players or something like that. No, I got into it quite accidentally through the U.S. military, and because the U.S. military, they are a big believer in metrology because they understand that you need measurements to be able to sustain technologies that are used in the military. So I learned it there, and once I found it, though, it became my calling. My goal was only to be the best metrologist that I could be, and I've spent my entire career just trying to do just that, to try to give back to the world of metrology, to learn, first to learn, and then secondly to give back. But I've tailored my entire career to be the best metrologist that I could be, and we've got other people at the company that have done the same thing. Their goal is to come to Fluke just to be able to work in the field of metrology. So now we want to share that and train more people, because we're finding in manufacturing that we need more and more of that expertise, and it's one of the critical parts of our company. It's what makes Fluke special is our knowledge and expertise in metrology. So we want to teach and share that within our company and within our customers as well.
Awesome, great. Well, Jeff, thanks for joining me. And any last words about World Metrology Day or the world of metrology in general?
I can't think of any good closing comments except for we at Fluke, we're going to hopefully have some fun time together on World Metrology Day, and I'm going to bring in some antiques and some things about our past and our present. Maybe try to do a little talk about metrology. I was thinking about temperature metrology, because to kind of focus on our temperature metrology segment and its history during that day, and we'll have some cake and take some time to celebrate it within our own company.
Sounds great. Cool.
So,
well,
thank you, Armin.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, and we wish everyone a happy World Metrology Day.
Happy World Metrology Day.
Thank you.